Hey guys, it's Leo with Dreaming Tree and welcome to another assembly tutorial. Today we're putting together our Halloween Crescent moon lamp. So let's jump in here. Now we're going to begin by putting together our base, and the base is made up of these four main structural pieces here, and they are numbered using our little numbering convention system here. And you'll see here we've got a Roman numeral 1. And down here is the Roman numeral 2. Here is number 3, Roman numeral 3 here and here. And then we have a 4, which is 4 dashes in the shape of a square or a circle there. So you do want to assemble these in order. And before we do that, since we have this nice and flat, we're going to put together, we're going to actually put the panels on. We're going to do the panels that we can do for now. There are some handles on this, so we're going to omit 2 sections of panels on this area here. We'll do that once the base is together. But nevertheless, the bottom sections are all going to receive panels, and they look like this. Let me grab them here. It's these panels here, and I did ink these with a little bit of orange. Okay, so we're going to get these glued down into place. Now, some of the things here that I'll be doing are a little repetitive and monotonous, so if you feel that you understand where we're at and what to do, you can feel free to either pause me and pick up and just kind of scrub through the video to the next section. We're going to do all 4 of these first, and then we're going to move up to this section here. So you do definitely want to resume when we get to the panels above this one here, because there's some key things that we'll go over just to make sure you don't mess up. Okay, so there's the first one. Moving on to the next one. And all of these panels are identical, so it doesn't matter which one you grab. Just make sure you got the right shape. Okay, we'll get this one glued into place. And as you're putting this down onto these sections, just make sure that you maintain a nice even border around this panel. Here in green you can see I have a nice little border, and it also helps to pre-fold all of these pieces so that this line here will help you better define the edges, and therefore making it easier for you to see where the actual edge is and where to place these panels to get the best looking border. Okay, so let's get this one going here. And after this, we just have one more. Pop that in place. If it's a smidge off, don't worry about it too much. And the last one. Now this piece, the base, well, actually pretty much everything we make for the most part is symmetrical as far as the main structure goes, but it is symmetrical. And the handles, I guess they're not really handles. I guess you could use them as handles, but I wouldn't. It's just a decorative piece. I'll call them handles for the sake of this tutorial. The handles need to be on opposite sides. Okay, so what we're going to do, we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. These panels here, we're going to grab these 2. Kind of stuck together here. We're going to grab these 2 and we're going to put them on section 1 and section 3. And we're going to leave them off of 2 and 4 because that's where the handle's going to go. We just want them to, we need to skip 1 in order for that to work properly. Okay, so with that said, as far as the orientation of this panel, we're actually going to align this straight to the very top here, right at where the tab begins. So if it helps, for the sake of visually aligning it, you can fold that tab down so you can see that fine edge there. Okay, so let's do that. Let's get these 2 panels glued down onto sections 1 and 3. And then we can start putting together the actual structure itself. Okay. There we go. And again, nice even border, except for at the top. We want that to be nice and flush with the very top, and then again, nice and centered on the left and right, so you have a nice equal, even border on the remaining 3 sides. And that looks good. Okay, so again, that was piece number 3. We're going over to number 1, and we're going to glue this one down to 1. There we go. Moving right along here. So it is last day of September. October begins tomorrow. And I am heading up to Eagle River. It's a vacation that I booked probably sometime last year before this whole COVID thing started. And I just read that the colors are officially at 100% up there, so I am getting antsy to hit the road here. Okay, all right, so that's done, and we're gonna head over and grab piece 1 and 2, and we're gonna start connecting these together, okay? So in order to do that, don't worry about this piece here, we can just ignore that for now. We're gonna start with the longest tab, and we'll apply our glue to this tab here. Throw a little bit right up to the very edge, and I'm going to take my finger and spread that glue out to the very, very edge here. And for now, we can do this flat. Don't worry about the fact that they're overlapping. We're just gluing these tabs together, just making sure that the alignment is as accurate as we can get it. Okay, and I can kind of fold this over onto itself and check my work. If I need to kind of nudge this in a little bit, I can do that, and then just press that down. Make sure those tabs are making solid contact, and they are. Okay, so now we can flip this out of the way. We're going to put glue on this tab, and we're going to connect that to the same piece, just on the lower part of it. Okay, there we go. So we've got our glue on there, and you want to line that up like so. Here we go. And this is going to be a pretty dimensional piece from here on out, so we're going to need to work dimensionally, and that's okay. There we go. Okay, that looks good so far. Now we can go ahead and glue this little triangular tab to the bottom of the base. And I'm just going to take my finger, just dab that a little bit, thin it out. It'll dry a lot faster. Bring this down and connect that right there. Give that a second. Okay, looks good. And we're going to grab piece number 3. Again, make sure you've got piece number 3. This is 1, this is 2, and here comes 3. And as you can see, we're going to put the handles on these sides here once we get that 4th section in place. Okay, so again, we're going to start here on the large tab. And I'm going to work that glue down to the bottom there. I don't think I got enough last time, but it's fine. Okay, grabbing piece number 3 and getting that nice and aligned. Hopefully my head's not in the shot. Looks good. There we go. Just line that up as accurately as you can and just press right at the tab. Give that a second to fully set before we move on. Okay, we can move that out of the way and put our glue on the next tab. That's nice because these tabs are nice and large, and there's only 2 main tabs here that really keep this thing together, so it's going to go real quick. The lampshade is a little bit of a different story, but not difficult. Okay, so we're going to line that up. Make sure we get it nice and aligned. There we go, and press. There we go. Wonderful. And of course, the final little tab down here, a little triangular one. just goes a lot faster when you thin out that glue. And pop that right behind, line it up, and press and hold. Looking good. How's yours looking? Hopefully it's coming along just like mine. So far, it's been pretty straightforward, not very difficult. Okay, so here we go. Repeating that same process, large tab here first. Get that glue down to the very edge. I want this to be nice and seamless, almost as if it was constructed out of one solid dimensional piece of paper. Okay, pop that right in there, lay it down, and just make sure that you've got it aligned. Give that a press. There we go. Looking good. Move that out of the way. And next tab, I'm going to just kind of paint that right up to the edge, like so. That's looking spot on. And get that nice and lined up. There we go. Perfect. And then we'll just need to close it up. Probably have to use the painting method of applying our glue to close that up without destroying this piece, and I'll show you how that works. So putting glue on the little triangular tab here, just like we did the last 3 times, well, 2 times. Get that lined up and press and hold. Wonderful. And that just leaves, just need to close it up now. Okay, so what we're gonna do here, because it's gonna be, we need to glue this section first, and then it may be tough to, well, maybe not, we'll see. Let's just start here at the top. That's probably the most important. Get this glued in place. Nice thin line at the bottom. Spread that nice and thin. There we go. And make sure the tabs are all tucked under. There we go. Get that nice and lined up. Glue is really tacky at this point, so that works out nicely. You can really get it aligned nicely. Okay, and you can always stick your hand in through underneath to push on the tabs to get them to really grip. Okay, and a couple ways of doing this at this point. We do actually have access to the tab from underneath, so we might as well just make it easy on ourselves and apply our glue from underneath. This is that last large tab there, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna push that glue out to the very edge, and then it's already under here. You can see it's going under, and we're lining it up just like we did the last 3 times. No big deal. And press that down into place. Beautiful. Perfect. Okay, and that just leaves this little triangular tab, and we're going to do that from the inside as well. You can see it there. I'm going to apply my glue to that and just hit that with my finger, spread it out a bit, line it up, and press and hold. And there we go. Okay, so far so good. Now, while this thing is flat on top, we need to put the base on. Okay, so there is the majority of it all done. You're gonna find this piece here, and we're gonna put this on, I'm gonna anchor it to the front, and I'm gonna call number 1 the front here. And we're gonna first anchor it and then close it up. It's always best to have a good footing and a good start to putting the rest of this on, because we've got 3 more large tabs that we have to glue this to. So it's important that we have something to help us get there without goofing up too much. Okay, so I've got that aligned nicely with the very edge. Okay, now I can actually put this down on my surface and press down. Once it's aligned and that glue grabs it, I'm just pushing down on the tab here. It's not going to go anywhere, so you can let it flip down and then use the leverage of your desk to really get this into place. Okay, and take a look at your work here, make sure everything looks nice and seamless, and it does. In which case, you can flip this back, and we're going to close it up now by applying glue to the remaining tabs. I'm going to go kind of easy on the inside, and then we're going to do one thin line along the outside. And we're going to spread that out with our fingers here to really make sure that looks nice and polished. Make sure you get those corners too. Sometimes I don't always get the glue out to the very corners, and that's where I have problems with it sticking. Okay, so we got our glue. We're going to flare these up a little bit. Grab this and bring it down. Align it with the side opposite of the side that it's anchored at. Focus on getting that aligned first. Press down right at the very edge here. And then check out the rest of it. Everything else looks good. Push down. And it may help to actually, I would just continue running your fingers along the perimeter just to kind of give it a little nudge in the right direction so that it makes good contact with that glue. And I've got one little area here that, well, looks like it's going to stick. That's good. Sometimes it peels back a little bit, and that's okay. Okay. Well, that looks great. Now we can go ahead and close up the top. So let's do that. We're pretty much done with our base here. Okay. We'll do the same thing. Just spread that glue out. It's a lot smaller, so it's going to be a lot easier. Okay, and again, flare these up a tad, bring it down, and close it up. Now we're actually going to put something on top of this, so even if this doesn't look perfect, it's going to be okay. It'll be hidden for the most part, but do your best. Obviously, we always want to do our best. And there we go. Okay, next up, we have a little panel that we're going to put along the base here, and you'll notice, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but for those of you that watched my video on the haunted barn, I was experimenting with gilding wax on that project, and I actually used it on this black onyx paper to give it a bit of a vintagey look. So what we want to do is we're going to start off by putting glue on just one side of this. You'll notice that there's a score mark in the center. You want to fold it there, and we'll just put this right on the base using the little score mark there where it's folded as kind of our guide for placement here, and then it should terminate right at the very edge here as well. Make sure that it's nice and flush with the bottom. Look how nice that looks. And once that's in place, you can peel this back or fold it back, and we can get this glued into place. That's kind of a lot of glue. Make sure you get a little bit of glue right on the very edge there so it doesn't come peeling back. And fold that over. Again, run your finger or your thumb right along the bottom there. Make sure those are nice and flush. Okay, so we've got half of the little base panel in place, and we're just going to repeat the same process for the other half. So go ahead and get your glue on just one section of this. Again, make sure you fold it first. And again, make sure you've got a little bit of glue right up at the very, very edge. Just go ahead and drop it in place. Use that little corner, that edge, as your guide, and your fingers to make sure that it's nice and flush with the bottom. That looks great. And then we can take this and flip it back. And there we go. Pop that right in there. There we go. Perfect. That aligns very nicely. Okay, great. So that's that. Now we can kind of move our way up here. You'll notice on these panels, there are little markers right in this area here. I have a total of 4 of these little teardrop shapes that we're going to glue right here. And you'll see the other marker right there so that there's no guessing as to where the center point is. So go ahead and get your glue on these guys here. And whatever is the most comfortable for you, whatever position. I'm going to go this way and get that nice and centered. There we go. And I did hit this with a little bit of ink. All these panels are inked, as are these little purple teardrops. Yeah, it's very hard to see the markers when you're dealing with patterned paper, so do your best. There you go, just like that. Grab the next one. Let me clean this nozzle off. There we go. Where are you? There you are. And that's it right there. And the last one, there it is. Once you kind of zone in on the area where that marker should be, you'll see it, and there we have it. Okay, so that's that, and then last but not least, we do have our little handle, so to speak. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to glue these back to back on the actual design here. Okay, but we're not going to touch this just yet, but we need to glue these back to back. So put glue on just this section here, like so, and make sure you get it out to the little details there. So we get this whole thing to stick. Okay, just line that up and pop it right in place. Take a look from the other side, make sure everything looks nice and even. And if you want, you can then fold this down and press like that. And that looks great. I really like this gilding wax. I may even I actually applied this with my finger. So I took gilding wax, put it on my finger, and just kind of rubbed it on there, which is what I saw them do to some vintage antique lamps. Actually, they weren't vintage lamps. They were like modern lamps that they wanted to, they wanted to make them look a little worn and aged and vintagey. So they took the gilding wax right on their finger and just kind of rubbed it onto the metal parts of these lamps that they were creating for a custom home or something. I don't know. Okay, so there we go. Get that one glued in place as well. Just match that up as accurately as you can. Okay, and then you can flatten that out. So again, we did not put glue on the inside of these sections yet. We're about to do that here in a second. Okay, so we can open this up. Now the idea is, and it's gonna go like this, not like this, but like this. And just like we did with this panel, we're gonna glue this so that it's nice and flush with the very top. And you can see how awesome that's going to look there on the side. And we're going to put panels over this in just a moment. But for now, let's get our glue on these two sections. Try to get some of that glue out to the very edges. There we go. Okay, and again, we're going this way. We had a little bit of glue there. And nice and flush with the top. Make sure you get it centered as well. So you have a nice even border on both sides and the bottom. And there you have it, just like that. Press that into place. Perfect. And now while we're here, I'm going to find these pieces, and you want to make sure that you find the right one, because this one works on, actually this one does not work on this side. You'll see that they do fit perfectly. They're not all identical as far as these shapes go. So you want to make sure that you get the right one. You'll be able to tell slightly that it's just not flush there at the bottom. So try another one until you get the right piece, and that's it right there for me. Okay, so we're gonna get some glue on these and pop these into place. And these are literally going right on top of our black onyx paper here. Should be completely flush with that. Press that down. And then we'll do the same thing on this side, and then repeat the process on the other side to get the other little handle elements in place. Okay, so pop that right in there. Pretty much want to butt it right up to the middle as far as it'll go. There'll be a point where it'll want to stop naturally, and that's how you know you've got it in the right section. Okay, there we go. Beautiful. That looks great. Now we're going to glue this one down. So let's get our glue on here. There we go. Certainly helps to get a good grip on whatever you're applying glue to, so that you can have more control over where that glue is going. Okay, so again, nice and flush at the top, nice even border on the sides, which will pretty much automatically give you a nice even border at the bottom. If you need to give it a little nudge, do so. And you can see how this little handle element pretty much dissects this little teardrop element there. Okay, and then find the little panels, make sure you've got the right ones. And that looks good, so we can apply our glue to this piece here. This is a graphic 45 paper. I'm sure many of you could just tell that right off the bat. Not many paper companies that make beautiful paper. Well, there's a lot of beautiful paper, just not in this style. Diane over at Graphic 45 has been knocking it out of the park for who knows how long now. Seems like forever. It's been at least 10 years, if not more. And I think this is one of the older stacks, but they're all beautiful. Okay, so here we go. Popping that last piece in place, making sure again that it's nice and level and even with the top. And our base is pretty much done here, with the exception of this little platform that we're going to put up here to hold our tea light, and then it also has a little lip where we're going to put our lamp once that's done. So there you go. Okay, that's looking pretty sharp so far. And now I'm going to grab these pieces right here. I can put that off to the side for a second. This is our first little main structure, just a little base. And what we want to do is just construct this. It's essentially just a dimensional box. And I'm going to start here. I'm going to fold back this lid and put some glue on just this triangular tab here. And kind of flatten that out and bring this in, get that aligned, and press that down. Now just so you can see what we're doing here, I'm actually gluing it to this. I'm just moving this out of the way so I can get my hand in there a little bit easier. Okay, so that's that. Now we can move on over here, get some glue on this little triangular tab. Kind of dab that down and bring this in, press and hold. Give it a nice strong pinch. It shouldn't take much more than a couple pinches. Okay, moving on over here to the other side, same thing. It's a nice triangular tab. There we go. Fill that in. Grab that and just press. Give it a good squeeze, there we go. And that just leaves one more. And I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of get my nozzle in there so I don't have to pull the tab out. I'm just going to use my glue nozzle to kind of spread that glue around instead of my finger, since it's kind of in an awkward spot. And that's the last one there. Get that lined up and press and hold. There we go. Now we just need to close this up. So grab your glue and we'll get some glue on these tabs here. Nice and simple. I'll do a thin line at the bottom. And I'm going to work that glue out to the very edges here. There we go. And there we have it. Okay, so you can flare these up a little bit, grab the lid, or whatever you want to call it, the part that's hinged, and go ahead and line it up on this side first. Make sure that that is nice and lined up. If you need to kind of push the walls in a little bit so that it meets the edge of this top, feel free to do that. And then just kind of run your fingers along the sides here. Like that. Okay. So now you'll notice that we have some labels on here. Okay, there's B for bottom, T for top. Okay, so this is going to be facing up. These little markers here are to help you with the placement of this on the structure here, the main base. And the top, we've got a little lip and a little compartment for our tea light as well as the lampshade. So let's go ahead and get this glued together. Grab this piece and throw a little bit of glue right on our triangular tab. I'm going to spread that out a little bit. You can do this flat. Grab this piece, get it lined up, and press that down. You can fold it over onto itself and kind of check your alignment. That looks great. Okay. And then to close it up, grab our glue, apply it to this last little triangular tab here, and we can do this flat too. Flatten that out, grab this side, bring it over, make sure it's nice and aligned, and press that down. Okay, and then we just need to close it up, kind of like we did with the main base here. Get our glue on this tab, on these three tabs, I should say. Throw a nice thin line up to the edge. There we go. And I'm just going to paint that glue. This is going to be covered up, I believe. Once we put the lampshade on there, you're not even going to see this. The lampshade's going to be covering up most of it. Actually, it might even be covering that up as well. All right, just like we did with this guy here, bring this down, get it nice and aligned with the side opposite of the side that is already hinged, and press that down. Now with this, we can actually flip this over and push down from the inside to help the rest of those tabs make contact. And let's continue looking at the very edges here, making sure that we don't have any gaps or any of that is pulling away, and it's not, so that's good. All right, so now we're going to take this and glue this to this little box. So grab your glue. I'm going to throw some glue on the entire bottom of this, like so. I'm going to do a thin line around the perimeter, spread that glue out. We want this to be nice and stable, as it's going to be pretty much holding everything in place as far as the lampshade goes. And get that as centered as you can using the little score marks there to guide you. And if it's a smidge off, it's not the end of the world. And there we go. And just press that down, just like so. And as I mentioned, we've got this little B here. Okay, and we can actually probably do is do it like this so that we can actually see it. That sounds like a plan to me. So what we'll do is we'll put glue on the top of this. And I'm going to work that glue out to the edges as well. I want that to have a really good hold. There we go. I might actually need a little more glue here. You can kind of just tell by my finger and how easily it slips and slides around whether or not I've got the right amount of glue there. Okay, so we can flip this over to where you can see the B. Take this, it doesn't matter which way you do it, as long as you get it centered using those little identifiers, those little markers there. And again, if it's a smidge off, no big deal, but it should be tacky enough to grab it. And now we can just push down from the top and get that in place. And have plenty of time for this to really set before we move on, or before we actually put anything on it. But we're halfway done here. The base looks fantastic. And we can begin working on our lampshade here. Okay, time to get into the lampshade construction, but before we do, just want to show you something I did between takes here. If you want to, you can. Obviously, we've got some nice little areas here for you to put either some rhinestones. I did some gold pearls, and I also added some really pretty braid around the base just to kind of jazz that up a little bit too. So this is nice and sturdy, everything's glued down, and we are ready for the assembly of the shade itself. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find these two pieces. I've already taken and folded the little teeth over. Now, unfortunately, it is going to require all of these. So there's going to be a little bit of gluing. And before we do that though, you'll notice that on this one's a little bit longer, and there are two little score marks here. Okay, so what we need to do is, and I know I flattened these out already, that's just to kind of train them. I'm going to flatten these back just temporarily so it's easier to glue this accurately. What we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to put glue pretty much on this side of these little score marks. We don't want to go beyond that point there, and we're going to glue that to the other piece like that. Okay, so here's what we're going to do as far as glue application goes. Go ahead and put glue on this, keep it above the little score mark area, obviously, get it all the way out to the edge as well. And then on this piece, let's throw a little bit of glue, let's do a line right up to the very edge, and let's push that glue up to the very, very, very edge there. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and glue these together. You want to stop it just kind of right at the score mark. You almost want to be on top of it, like halfway. Okay, that's the point where we need these two gel together. And as you can see, I also hit this with some of that gilding wax in just a very random fashion. It's kind of hard to get any sort of ink on anything black like this, so the gilding wax shows up very nicely. And now we do want to give this a moment to fully set before we move on, because there's going to be a little bit of tension here as we're going to be folding this down. So I'm going to leave this alone for just a moment and put that off to the side. And in the meantime, we can do a few things here. We'll grab these pieces. These are the outer part of our lampshade. The last part that you see that's actually facing you. All the rest of this stuff is part of the structure. Okay, so make sure you get the right piece here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these little sections on here. You can see that we have some little markers to show you exactly where all of this goes. So we'll be using that to our benefit. So go ahead and throw some glue on this. It's a perfect little thing to do while we wait for the main structure of our lampshade to set fully. Again, just use those little guides there to help you with the positioning of these pieces. And there's also these little purple pieces that are going to go right here. Okay, and they actually go, how do they work? Like this. Okay, so you see there's a little marker here for the very tip, and then there's a kind of like a little hill that goes right into the corner here where it turns into this shape. So you want to line it up like so. Okay, so let's get that done. I'm going to do this to both sides just to get it all prepped and ready. And now this project comes with some optional printable vellum, and we've designed a really cool looking spider web motif for the vellum, which I think is going to look really cool. I'll show you here. You can see what that's going to look like behind this, like that. Especially when it's illuminated, it's going to look really cool. Okay, so now grab the other side, and that's going to go right here, like so. Let's get that glued down. There we go. And I would probably make sure that I get this part down correctly first. Okay, and we'll move on to the next side. So there's two sides to this lamp, obviously. So you can see the beautiful detail and all the motifs from both sides, whichever side you tend to, when you decide to look at it from, or just happen to walk by it. And okay, so we'll get this one in place, and then grab these two guys here again and get those in place. Okay, and that one's going to go here. There we go. And pop that into place. And the last one. Now there's also a little diamond shape that we can actually glue on while we give that a little bit more time to set. There we go. Okay, and then up here we have a little diamond. Just a little drop of glue on that will do. And there's a little marker up there too. Whoops. Let me grab my pick-me-up tool. Make it easier to hold this. And just pop that right into place. Make sure that you've got it nicely positioned. And go here on this one. Get that in place. Pop that right in. There we go. Okay. All right, so these are ready to go. And actually, you know what? Yeah, we'll leave the other part for later. And I accidentally had 2 extras of these, so we don't need them. You can discard that. And can move on to the actual assembly of the lampshade here. So, okay, so with that said, I'm going to find these 2 pieces here. Okay, we're going to just work with one at a time initially. But the idea here is, I'm going to flip this over. What we're going to do is we're going to start at the very tip here. And we're going to get that glued right to the very tip, like so. We want that to pretty much meet at the point of this little lampshade piece. So we're going to get that as close as we can to that. We're going to begin by anchoring this down with just a couple tabs. So I'm going to start with maybe just 3. Grab this, and you want to follow the, well, just the angle of this piece here, and push that all the way in as far as it'll go. Just make sure it's making good contact. And we are gluing the tab to the outside. We're using this as what we call a little skeleton piece. Okay, so let me show you from this side here. You can see how that's connected right there. And we're literally just going to work our way all the way up. I need to bring this tab back out. Make sure your tabs are on this side here so that you don't create more work for yourself. And we're literally just going to put glue on all these tabs and just work our way around to get that glued into place. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and put glue on just a few tabs at a time. I don't want to overdo this and make it harder on myself. Now normally for something like this I would probably just use my surface, but I think we want to make sure that we are actually wrapping this around this structure as accurately as we can. So I'm kind of pushing in this way, pushing down here, making sure that everything is nice and in place. Okay, there we go. And we just keep on cruising here. And I'm just doing little dots of glue. Once we have it anchored, you probably can tell and you'll feel it. Feel more comfortable doing more tabs at a time, and you should just have to just kind of give them one squeeze each to get them to stick. And again, you want to make sure that this piece has all the way up against this section here. You're squeezing it right into that little corner as far as you can. Okay. You just give that a push if you've got glue on there. Okay, so far so good. Let me see if we can do this. Yeah, technically we can, at this point, use our surface, and you can see how this is going to wrap around. I just want to check my work real quick. Make sure that once it does get all the way around, it terminates right up at the bottom there. Yep, that's good. Okay, so a couple ways of doing this at this point, and we can probably start moving a little bit quicker at this point as well. So let's just do our little dots of glue, and I'm gonna do that many, whatever that is. Put this down on our surface, tuck those tabs underneath. Okay, and I'm kind of pushing on the outside here while I'm pushing down from the inside. Just make sure that it's nice and snug right in that little corner there. Okay, and you can see the end result there. That looks great. And we'll flatten some of these out and begin putting some dots of glue on these teeth. Get a little more comfortable here. Slide them under. And again, make sure it's nice and taut and up against the skeleton piece as tight as it'll go. You can push from the outside to make sure that's nice and tight. Yeah, and once we get this, the rest of it is just paper piecing for the most part. There's nothing to it. So this is probably the most challenging, but by no means difficult. Okay, here we go. A few more. Let's tuck those under. Push down and push in on this piece here, as far as it'll go. You may want to kind of pull away a little bit, but just keep pressing down as you're pushing in from the outside. Okay, let's take a look at our results so far. Nice and clean, nice and aligned. Okay. And keep on moving. That looks good. Tuck those tabs under. Now here it's going to start to kind of change the shape of this, and that's okay. Don't be alarmed. It might want to lift up from that side, and that's totally expected because this is it's an odd shape. Okay, it's not square. It's, it's dimensional, obviously. Okay, I've got a few tabs there that did not take. So you want to make sure that you're patient. There we go. Perfect. Okay, and let's see where this terminates now. And it's perfect. Lines up perfectly. Just like that. Yep, looks good. Okay, so let's grab the rest of these tabs, pull them out. We're going to close this up now on this side. Move that out of the way. Clean this nozzle off. There we go. And just little drops of glue Single dots are fine. It'll go a long way. Okay, tuck those tabs under. And I think with this one here, once we get to the end, we're just gonna have to do these manually. So again, I'm still pushing in here, and then I'm pushing down onto the tab just to make sure that everything is meeting up nicely. Gotta be patient here. There's a little bit of resistance, and it's gonna try to pull away from you. Just be patient. Do your best. There we go. And the last one. Beautiful. Now, because this is already kind of taking shape, the other side's going to be a lot easier. Okay. So there we have it. And you can see, it's the first time I've ever done a shape like this. So I'm kind of excited to see how everything works out. Okay. Now this we can fold. Maybe just keep it out of the way. All right, so we're gonna grab this piece now, and we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna start by anchoring it on one side here. I'm gonna kind of shove it in there. Doesn't matter exactly where it is right now. We're gonna glue it so that these two tips, pretty much, these two tips right here, the tips of these, and this last one that we already have in place, it should basically be touching. You don't want them to overlap, but you do want them to pretty much touch. If it's off by a tad, don't worry about it. Okay, so just like we did last time, we're gonna start by anchoring this down to, let's say, the first, I don't know, 3 tabs or so. So go ahead and get your glue on these tabs here. And make sure that that tip is down as far as it'll go without going over the other one, and get that anchored to the first tab, and then the second, and then the third, and then the fourth. And I think that's pretty spot on. If you're off a little bit, it's going to be okay. But really shouldn't be off by much. Okay. All right, so now I've kind of flared a few tabs out here. You can see these tabs here. Okay, so that's much better. You can see these tabs that I have here. And just like we did before, I'm just gonna do little dots of glue like that. And let me see if we can do it this way. Sure thing. So we're gonna tuck them under, just like we, well, you know what? Not yet. It's too curvy down here. I'm gonna do this by hand. Okay, so just push this in. I'm pushing this in while pushing down on the tab, making sure that this is nice and flush up against this section here. And push that in, push it down. There we go. Got a couple more here. I think once it starts to flatten out a little more, we can use our surface again like we did last time. But it's a little bit too curvy here at the bottom. Okay, so there we have that. We're up to this section here. Now that one didn't take, but that's okay. All right, so next set of tabs. Just dots of glue. You can see them there. And let's see if this will work now. It may not. Should be okay, actually. Yep, you can use your surface here now. So I'm pushing from the outside. Try not to be too rough on this piece right now because it is kind of, it's just a weird shape. But weird is good, especially when we're making something unique. We've never really made anything like this before with this sort of shape, and that's why I'm kind of, it's my first time too, so you guys will be all right. Okay, so those are in place. I'm gonna fold these down and begin putting some glue on these tabs. Since I can use my surface, I've done almost 10 there, I think, roughly. Okay, so let's fold those over. can put this down on my surface. And again, just kind of pushing from the outside to push this down up against this little skeleton piece that we're working with, and then using my finger here to press that glue into place. It really is just kind of taking shape here because we've already done one side, so it's not so bad. Okay, let's take a look at what we got here. Looks great. All right, let's push this in. The tabs need to be on the outside of our little skeleton piece. Bring these tabs down and continue on with our little dots. There we go. Put that down. We're going to tuck those under. So the tabs are essentially flat on my table right now. And I'm pushing, kind of just giving this a little bit of force, and then pressing down with my finger onto those tabs to get that glue to seep into and in between the fibers from both sections, the tab and the skeleton piece. Okay, and there we have it. Let's get these tabs in here. Really cool little design here. All right, so we're getting close to the end here. We may be able to use our surface on a few of these. So I'm gonna just do like 5 at a time here. I'm gonna press those down, tuck them under. Okay, and again, using my pushing in towards the skeleton piece and then pressing down here to get that glue to seep in there. And I think that's going to be it as far as using the surface. We're going to need to kind of do this handheld at this point the rest of the way, and that's fine. Okay. So here we have the remaining tabs, and that matched up perfectly. So let's just do a few at a time here since we're getting kind of close. Okay, so single tab, and again, just kind of pushing and grabbing. Grab this one, make sure it's nice and flush up against the skeleton piece. There we go. And the last one. Perfect. All right, home stretch. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. Get that nice and flush up against this natural curve here. I'm kind of pushing up with my middle finger while pushing down with my thumb, and then pushing this in up against this side of our skeleton piece. It's going to be especially important as you get towards the bottom. You really want to push that paper up against the natural curve of this skeleton piece. Otherwise, it's not going to have the right shape. Okay, so that just leaves 4 more. You can see them there. 1, 2, 3, and then our shorty there at the end. There we go. All right, that wasn't bad at all. Perfect. This is third from last tab. Nice hard press. Second to last. Give that a good press. Make sure it's hugging that curve. And the last one. Nice and tight in there. Perfect. Awesome, look at that. That fit nicely. Okay, so there's our shape, and now probably wondering what the heck is this? Well, this part here, we're actually going to make this 4 layers thick. This is essentially what keeps the base on, keeps the lampshade on the base, I should say. And what we're going to do is we're just going to glue these together right on top of each other. So what we need to do is just put glue on one of the sides. I'm going to put glue on this section here. Oops. Keep it nice and thick. And don't worry about that glue there. It doesn't really matter. Okay. So bring this down and just get it connected right on top of itself, on top of the other piece. Whoops, my finger got stuck in there. There we go. Get that lined up right there, and then just grab it, go all the way around, and make sure that that is making good contact all the way around. All right, so how'd it go? I think that actually turned out quite well. So before we start jazzing this thing up and finishing it off, we do have 2 of these little square pieces here, and that is just to reinforce this section here, make it stronger, because this is going to be holding up our lamp here. So go ahead and get some glue on the first one here and get that glued into place, and then we'll do the same thing with the other one and pop that right on top of this piece to finish it off. Okay, just line it up. It should fit exactly perfectly right onto this section here. Oops. There we go. Make sure it's nice and flush with both sides here, because we do have some pieces that we need to put in place after the fact, and I don't want this piece getting in the way. It's nice and sturdy now. Now we're going to do it one more time. It's going to be even sturdier. You can certainly put the glue on this section here. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to go a little bit heavier and a little bit wider with the glue here, because when that glue hardens, it literally stiffens too, and that will help keep this piece nice and stiff. We don't want this. This is going to kind of keep everything in order. Going to support everything as well, and the more glue we have for this, the stiffer it's going to be. It's almost going to be like a chipboard, almost like wood, I guess you could say. Okay, just go all the way around, make sure everything's making good contact on all 4 sides. There we go. Okay, and can actually, in a second here, we can test our work and make sure that this fits nicely onto our base. Still just going around making sure that all these are sitting on top of each other. Okay, so let's have a look. There you go, look at that, like a glove. Fits perfectly. So yeah, and this is actually based on the old Crescent moon lamps from, boy, I don't even know what era. I want to say the 30s, something like that. So definitely a unique piece. That's got, well, Halloween goes back a long, long time, so this is really, really cool and appropriate. Before we get our vellum in place, we need to put this structural piece on first. Okay, so that's going to go on here first, like so. And we're going to do that with the other one, and then finally, this is going to go over this piece. Okay, and we're going to sandwich the vellum in between this layer and the final layer. Okay, so it's going to go kind of like this. Anyway, let's get this started first, and what I'm going to suggest we do here is, well, let me see if this is even possible. Yeah, it sure is. We can kind of do this in segments instead of trying to do this all in one shot. I think it'll make it easier for us. So what we can do, instead of trying to put glue on this, I'm going to put glue on the actual structure here. So let's start here. Let's get our glue all the way out to the edge, and we'll start in this section here. We'll work on these little ribs first. Okay, and up here at the top, it's going to be important that we get that glue all the way out to the very edge. So paint that glue out to the edge, like so. Okay, and grab this, and just kind of use the little cutout where our little pumpkin's going to go as your guide for placement. Okay, you can kind of squeeze the ribs here just to make sure that the alignment is spot on, and then press and get this into place in these little areas. And we can luckily get our fingers in there. Kind of squeeze that into place. Okay, you can actually even put that down on your surface and press down from the inside. Just on these sections here. Later on we won't have that luxury, so take advantage. Okay. All right, so that looks great. And now you can peel this back, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a scrap piece of paper. I'm going to load this up with a little bit of glue. We'll use that in a second, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put glue on as much of this as I can without peeling it back too far. Okay, all the way down to the tip. And then I'm going to run that glue right along the perimeter as well. And then on this rib, because the other rib is already joined, I'm going to take this glue and spread it out all the way out to the edge, right down to the very tip. Okay. And then we just literally take it and get it connected with our lamp here. Get these parts nice and aligned as well. Focus on, while you can, the very edge of the lamp here, and making sure that that's making good contact. Maybe just keep a finger on the bottom. That's where the most tension is. Okay, and just kind of run your finger along this section here. And if we need to, we can always go in and add a little bit of glue right up to this part here to get that to stick better if it seems like it maybe is coming up a little bit. But mine is actually doing really well, and I don't think I'm gonna have to do that. Maybe up here a little bit. I've got a spot up here where I didn't get enough glue. Just have some glue on a scrap piece of paper, shove it in between the two layers, and then just press that down. Give that little section a little extra tender love and care, and there you have it. Okay, so that part, it looks great. Nice and seamless. Okay, so we can move on over to the other side, peel this back, and I'll show you, I'll try to do my best. It's always a challenge. It's one thing to do this, but another thing to demonstrate it. It kind of sometimes makes me hold things pretty awkwardly, so bear with me. Technically, yours should look better than mine as far as the final outcome, because you don't have to worry about holding this thing all weird. You can put it wherever you want. Okay, and again, I'm kind of just spreading this glue out to the very edge here. Okay, and move that out of the way. Just following the natural curve, getting it nice and aligned all the way down to that tip. And I'm going to hold that tip while I run my finger along the rest of this. And then you can press down on the ribs. That rib's already glued down, so that worked out nicely. And there you go. Perfect. Wouldn't you know it? So again, I've said this before, but this is my first time putting this project together. So as long as you can follow along with me, and this being my first time, there's absolutely no reason why you can't successfully make this lamp. So there we have it, beautiful. That came out perfect, okay? So of course, we need to do the same thing on the other side. And this is a good opportunity to kind of take a look at your work, and I see a little bit of a gap here. Just gonna slide some glue right into that little area where it's not sitting completely flush, and I'll just hold that down with my fingers until it is. But you can see how crisp that looks. It's gonna look great. Okay, let's flip her over, and we'll do the same thing on the other side now. Again, we'll focus on getting just the center of this in place, and we'll lift up the other two sections. So we'll get some glue on our little pumpkin head here, and then a little bit on this rib. Bring it all the way down down to this rib, and then a nice thicker line all the way up here. And we'll take this and spread that glue out so that it gets all the way out to the perimeter. And if you have a little bit that's spilled over, just wipe it up. No big deal. Okay, grab this, lay it right on there, match it up with the little pumpkin head. There we go. Make sure it's nice and flush at the top. The ribs are joined nicely up to this point here. Oh yeah. I'm kind of impressed with myself right now. Hopefully you are having just as much success as I am. This, again, it's kind of fun to be challenged because I know a lot of you guys work on our projects, and some of our things are, well, you've seen it before in one way or another as far as, you know, the assembly process goes and such, and sometimes it's fun to be challenged with something new. So hopefully we're accomplishing that. And just like we did on the other side now, we can kind of peel this back. Hopefully you can see that. Let me do it from this angle so you can see it a little bit better. It's not really great for me, but good for you. And apply your glue to the little rib here. And then we'll do a nice thicker line right along the tabs all the way down to the bottom. And I'm going to spread that glue out to the edge. I don't know if I got enough glue on that this time, but we'll see. Okay. And get that nice and lined up with the top. Hold it down at the bottom, right at that tip. That's where, again, we have the most resistance. So we want to be a little more patient there. And it looks like it's kind of lifting up a little bit for me, so I need to start squeezing here. That looks good. Wonderful. Okay, hold that in place. Take a look at your work from the side here. Make sure it all is sitting nice and flush. I've got one little area there that might need a little extra love. That part looks good, so I'm gonna head on over here. I'll grab my scrap piece of paper, just throw a little dot of glue, nice and flat, right on the very tip of it, and just shove it in between these two layers. And just paint a little bit right on there, and then just press that down. Yep, looks good. Looks real good, actually. And we can head on over to the other side and finish this up. And you can see that. We'll get the glue on the little ribs. And then right up against the very edge here. And spread that glue out. Right up to the very, very perimeter. And press that into place. Again, focus on kind of holding that tip in place. Run your finger along the edge here, make sure that that looks and feels good. And then kind of squeeze here, and voila. Now this thing's gonna be really sturdy. Beautiful. Yeah. This one's gonna be a little more challenging, I think, but hey, good things don't come easy. All right, perfect. Okay, so we can, at this point, get our vellum in place and such. Okay, so this one here, again, this is a printable vellum, and I'm actually talked to Mike today. He's gonna, while I'm doing this, he's putting together videos to show you how to do a print and cut with Silhouette as well as Cricut. Now, if you don't want to do a print and cut, you can print this out. We're also going to include a hand cut version where you can cut this out by hand. And for our Cricut users that want to do print and cut, yours is going to come cut in half because the amount of area that you have for print and cut on a Cricut is less than what you can get with a silhouette cameo. So you will have to, yours is going to come pretty much cut right here. You just have to do one at a time instead of the whole thing. And actually, it might even be easier for me to cut this in half and just do one side at a time, because it's just less to hold on to. Okay, so essentially what I'm working with right now is what our Cricut users will have. Okay, so to get that in place, we're going to just do some dots. This is all going to be hidden by our final layer. So you don't need to worry about this glue, these little dots showing up anywhere. Obviously, the part that you want to see, you'll be able to see, and the parts that you don't want to see will be hidden by that final little layer. So we do want to make sure that we get this aligned correctly so that it is in fact covering up all the little cutouts. Okay, so just lay that down like so. Looks like that. Beautiful. Try to get that as flush as you can so that when we put the new layer on, or the next layer on, we're not fighting with the previous layer kind of, you know, bulging out or anything. Okay, and then if you do have a little area there that maybe isn't sitting completely flat, just throw a little extra glue on that. Just paint a little glue on there. And press that down. There we go. Okay, so that's one quadrant. And we'll do the other one. Okay, and again, if it's a little bit off, it's not a big deal. This is all going to get covered up ultimately, so don't worry about being perfect here at this point. But definitely try to get that glue as close to the little cutouts here, these little windows, as you can. The vellum is slightly oversized, but it's not that big, so you want to try to get somewhat close. Okay, and you can kind of use this as a guide. There we go. And there we go. And if all of it is not, if you don't have glue on every single little inch of it, don't worry about it. As long as you have the majority of it sitting in place, it'll be fine. Okay, and I'm just going to throw a little bit of glue here, keep this section down. Okay, great. So that's perfect. And now we got to put this vellum in place as well. And it's going to go like so. And this is just to give it a two-tone sort of look, because our pumpkin's going to be orange. Okay, so just like we did, just going to do some dots. Make sure you keep it within the paper area and you don't encroach over into the cutout. You can see the cutout area here. So just be careful with that. And again, make sure you get that nice and centered, like so. Press that down into place. Oops. That really moved on me there, but that's okay. Okay, you can actually even flip this over and push down from the inside if you want. Leverage the leverage of your table. We're going to do the same thing on the other side with the vellum, but you can see what the final outcome is going to look like once we have all that vellum in place. And we also still need to put some vellum up on top here as well. But that is starting to really take shape here. So I'm going to repeat that process on the other side. Again, if it's easier for you, feel free to just cut this in half. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'll just do one section at a time. And if it helps, you can absolutely just do like half of this at a time. So you don't have to worry about gluing everything all at once. Actually, I'll just stop right there. And this is way more flexible than any paper. So you can absolutely just do like this section first. Okay. Let me grab my scrap paper here. Sometimes it's hard to know exactly where to put your glue, and that's okay. Just do your best. Okay, so that part's in, and now we can just peel this back and continue on with our gluing of the vellum. And just pop that right into place. And by doing that, you're kind of anchoring it a little bit, and it makes it a lot easier to smooth this out and get it on there nice and tight. Okay, so there we have that. And again, if you want, I've got a little bit of this vellum still sticking up. Just throw a little bit of glue on a scrap piece of paper, just paint it right under there. And you can push that down and hold it in place. Okay, so get the last part of our cool little design in place here. And I'll start off by actually getting enough glue in that area there. You can do dots. I'm kind of doing dots sort of. Okay. Again, you can use the other one as kind of a guide for initial placement. Make sure that it is in fact covering all of the little cutouts. Press down on the areas with the glue. There we go. Peel that back. And let's get the rest of the glue in place. Now if you know how to do it with your glue bottle, if you press gently and keep it moving, it'll kind of give you almost like a perforated output from that glue nozzle, and that's handy so that you don't have to sit there and do a bunch of dots. Okay, there you have that. There you have that. And we'll grab our orange vellum here and get that around the perimeter like so. Make sure that we get it spot on. There we go. And press that down into place. Beautiful. Okay, so we do have some vellum on top, which we can put on now. Okay, so this obviously is going to go like this, just like that. Okay, and this panel, let's take a look just for reference how much bigger the panel is compared to the vellum. So you can see how much room you have here. Yeah, as long as you get it centered roughly like that, and then bring it down here. Don't go too far down. You want it just slightly, well, you want to have a nice border around this essentially. And make sure that you've got a little bit of, a little bit of slack up here and a little bit of slack down there. And that should work out fine. And we can go ahead and I'm just going to do some dots just to play it safe. Work some dots inside as well. Of course, we want to go around the perimeter. Down to this last little hole at the bottom. It is very windy. What you hear right now is my garage door vibrating in the wind, so I'm sorry about that. It's kind of spooky actually, so it's fitting. Okay, so that worked out nicely. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start it at the bottom, right about there. Just hold it with my finger and just lay the rest of it in place, like so. Make sure you get it nice and taut. And that is a little bit off to the right. That's okay. Just correct that if necessary. Okay. It's kind of hard to get your hand in there, but you can. Just to kind of use it as a little bit of leverage. Okay, and let's test this out real quick and see how we did. as far as placement, making sure that there's no vellum sticking out once we get our panel on here. And that is perfect. Okay, so that's nice and well hidden. All right, we'll worry about that in a second when we put the final pieces in place, but we do have one more piece of vellum to put on this side. And I'm just gonna do the same thing. Just work the perimeter. Try to get as close as you can without getting too close, if that makes any sense. Okay, you can see where I'm at here. And just kind of bring a little bit of glue into these little areas where you've got the cutouts. A little bit in here, a little bit in there, just so it doesn't go moving on you. Just like that. And I'm going to start at the bottom again. Make sure it's nice and centered. There we go. Perfect. Okay, press that down into place. Make sure you get it nice and centered. Try to get it as flat and flush as you can. That ought to do it. Okay. And again, let's take our panel, make sure that everything is well within the confines, and it is. Okay, so what I'm probably going to do at this point is I'm going to glue this down first. Okay, and you can actually pretty much butt it up to this little seam up at the top. And that is a good indicator and a good place to make sure that we do have it lined up correctly. So I'm going to put my glue right up at the very top of this, and we'll just kind of do this in segments so that we don't have to try to do this all in one fell swoop. I'm going to paint the glue out all the way to the edge. We want that to be nice and flush and flat. Okay. And get that nice and centered in there. Before you press down too much, just make sure you do have it centered, and then you can go ahead and press there. Make sure that that gets a grip. You can see as we bring this down, it fits over that perfectly. Okay, so be patient there, hold it. It's kind of like I feel like a surgeon. Okay. All right, so give that a second to set, because what we're going to do is we're going to peel this back and we're going to apply our glue on the remaining parts of our little panel here. It might help to kind of keep it lower to your table so it doesn't wiggle around too much. Definitely get some glue down to the very bottom. Go all the way back up. And then work some of the glue into all these little design areas, especially down at the end, the little edges here of the little motif. And that should do it. Now, I'm going to grab the bottom and very accurately and very gently kind of pulling it taut and bringing it down to the very bottom, holding it at the bottom, and just kind of run your fingers along this panel here, making sure that everything is nice and flush with the surface here. And if we need to, we can always go back in and kind of clean this up a little bit. Okay, so we've got this in place. Now, if you have any of these guys here, these little tips of this little design, you can absolutely take just a little bit of scrap paper, paint just a tiny bit of glue right underneath that part, and push that up against the vellum so that it sits a little bit more flat for you. Okay, but overall, I think this is really starting to look good. It all fits very nicely. Okay, so all we need to do now is get the other half of this in place. Okay, and just like we did before, we're going to start by gluing it right up to the top there. Try to butt it up against the one that's already there, and you can see how that's going to fit on there. Okay, so let's do that. And I think this time We're gonna, again, as I mentioned, maybe break it down into 3 sections instead of just 2. We'll get it anchored up at the top, and then work our way down. I think the ghosts are trying to steal this thing. Okay, so again, get that nice and lined up against that little seam there. Make sure it's nice and centered and matching up with the other half. And just hold that in place for a moment while it sets. Make sure that, okay, and that looks pretty spot on, I'd say. Okay, so another option as far as doing this is you could certainly, if you're comfortable, just, well, at this point it doesn't really matter. We can still use our glue. So I'm gonna get up here and get up as high as I can and start applying my glue to these sections here. Okay, so again, we're breaking this down into 3 steps instead of just 2. It's gonna make it a lot easier, I think. Okay, and when we go to put this on, again, you wanna make sure that it's nice and tight. Just kind of run your finger all the way along the side here, just to make sure that it is stretched out as far as it'll go. And just work your way down. Make sure it's making good contact in the little spots that we put our glue. Okay. And there we go. It's looking a lot better. Okay, so now we can peel this back and apply our glue to the rest of this. And make sure you get into the little nooks and crannies here on the design. And just run that all the way down. You can kind of grab it at the bottom. Press and hold that bottom down. I'm kind of pulling on it. And then run your fingers along the perimeter and make sure that all of that is making good contact with the actual structure here, just like that. Okay. Okay, so we've got the top panel on. All that's left to do is put our side panels on now. And I think we're going to approach this the same way we did with the, well, with the base construction. And we'll, yeah, we're going to glue down a segment at a time, starting in the center, just so that we can at least be sure that we've got this nice and centered. Okay, so let's get our glue pretty much up to this part here, and then we'll work this rib here, the first little rib. Get that on there, like so. And use the little finial up at the top as your initial guide for placement. So kind of grab it right there, make sure it's centered, make sure that everything is lining up nicely, and just press that down. You can kind of check your work down here too. Make sure the little bat wings are all lined up at the bottom as well, and press that down. You can use your table to really leverage the leverage of the table. That looks good. Let's take a look. Okay, looks good. Oh yeah. Okay, so far so good. And again, we've got a lot of real estate here to try to glue down. Don't worry about trying to do it all in one shot. We can always go in and using our little painting technique, we can clean this stuff up. And I'm probably gonna hit this with some gilding wax here at this seam, just to kind of close it up and make it look nicer. Okay, so I can peel this back now, just gently. Peel it back gently, and get your glue on the remaining ribs and the remaining bottoms of our little bat wing. I don't think I realized that this was a bat wing until just now. I'm very observant there, Leo. Okay, and just bring that down. Make sure it meets up all the way at the bottom, nice and flush along the top. And just hold that down. Okay. And if you didn't get enough glue in some of these areas, which I probably didn't, because again, it's a lot of real estate to cover here. Just grab a scrap piece of paper, paint a little bit of glue right in those areas, and then just press and hold that down in those specific areas that just need a little extra help. Okay, again, working with a funny shape here. So it's going to take a little extra work. It's not like we're just putting this down on a box or like a square shape. We're really working with some unusual curvatures here, and the paper doesn't seem to like that very much. But it'll like it in the end when it's pretty. It'll be worth all the work. Okay, and this little area here, not sitting completely flush with the very edge, so just painting a little bit of glue, and I'll just press and hold that in place. Get a nice clean seam there. Okay, so that side looks pretty darn good. So we can head on over here and finish off this side now. We can peel this back gently. And get our glue on the rest of this. Of course, you want to try to make sure you get that glue out to the edges as close as you can without overdoing it. There we go. And I'm going to need some up here. Okay. And bring that down, make sure it's making good contact with the very edge here, and there we go. Beautiful. And just squeeze up here. Make sure everything is making good contact. Okay, so I can actually kind of get a feel for what this is going to look like when it's done. And look at that. That looks awesome. So we just need to put, well, there's still some more pieces to this, but just need to do the same thing on the other side now. So as I mentioned, probably a good idea to start with the center. So let's get our glue on this little finial. And I think that's actually called a fleur-de-lis. Fleur-de-lis, something like that. I can never remember. Okay, there we go. And again, I'm going to grab the tip of this and use this as my initial guide for placement. And then just drop it in. Oops. There we go. Perfect. And give that a little squeeze down here. We've got glue on that rib as well as that one. So we want to kind of push up a little bit, make sure it's making contact. There we go. Make sure it's nice and flush up at the top. And just like we did before, I'm going to peel this back. And actually, I'm going to try a different technique here. You can peel it back and use your glue bottle if you want. I'm going to put some glue on a scrap piece of paper, and I'm just going to paint it right underneath this. Okay. So you can certainly do it that way. I'll show you the other way here in a second. And I'm putting a lot more glue on than I usually would when I use this method because I have a lot more real estate to cover here. And it's actually kind of getting tacky right now, which is good, while we're still putting the glue on. Get a little bit in there. Okay, and then just work your way around the perimeter. Bring that down. I'm just kind of making sure that it's in fact making contact with the very edge here. And that looks great. Get a little glue that's shot out there. Just going to rub that off with my fingernail and my finger. Squeeze this together. And there we go. That actually, I think that worked out a little bit better than the other side. Okay, so then all we need to do is go back to this side now. And again, you can just peel this back and you can get your glue nozzle in there. And just do it that way if you prefer. Should be fine. At the end of the day, you're probably going to need to use the little painting method to fix any little imperfections or any little areas that maybe need a little extra glue to stick. And that's okay too. Okay, wind, we get it. And there we go. And just make sure that's nice and flat, nice and flush. And if it's not, again, grab your scrap piece of paper, stick a little bit of glue into the areas where maybe it's not perfectly flat, and just give those little areas some extra TLC. And they'll be good to go. So that's pretty much it for, well, no it's not. We've got some other sections here. Next thing we're gonna do while I'm holding that is we're gonna glue this onto our lampshade to give it a nice little bit of trim. And then we just have to put the face on our little pumpkin. Okay, so the lampshade is pretty much done with the exception of the pumpkin face, the jack-o'-lantern. As you can see here, I went around and any little areas that were kind of sticking up, I just painted a little bit of glue underneath and pushed them down. And then also, I wanted to leave this so that you could see it, but on this curved area on top, if you have these little guys sticking up, just throw a little bit of glue underneath it and then press that down and hold it up against the vellum to get that to sit nice and flat. All that's left to do, as I mentioned, is put our little pumpkin face on here. So he's got 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth, of course, and we're going to do this on both sides. And we're actually going to glue this right to the vellum. And I'm going to start with the mouth. I'm going to put the mouth right about there. Okay, so let's get our glue on the back of this. I'm just going to do some dots here because it has more of a tendency to really smear on the vellum, and I don't want to tarnish or blemish my beautiful vellum here. So I'm just going to do a few dots on the back of this. And again, we're just going to start with the mouth. And I'm going to put the mouth right about here. Just kind of follow that natural curve that's already there. There you go, just like that. Try to get it nice and centered. There we have it. If it's a tiny bit off, it's okay. And then we'll grab our nose and throw a single little dot of glue on that. I don't need a ton. Okay. And we're going to put our nose nice and centered above the mouth, right about there. And kind of use this straight line here as a reference for placement. There we go. And then the eyeballs, little cutouts, are going to be towards the bottom of this piece, not at the top. Okay, so just grab that and pop that right into place like so. Want it a little bit sideways, right about there. That looks good. And grab our other one. So we're going to repeat that process on the other side, obviously, so you want to do that. I don't have to walk you through it twice. Just do your best. And pop the other eyeball in place. Again, just make sure that you have it somewhat symmetrical. Okay, there we go. Beautiful. So there's our pumpkin. And now we have this little band here that we're going to glue to the bottom. And just like we did with pretty much everything else on this project, we're going to start with the center. Just get that nice and aligned. And then we'll work our way down. And again, I'm going to put some braid on this to finish it off. It's optional. You don't have to do that if you don't want. Okay, there we go. And then either A, you can peel this back and apply your glue that way, but I really prefer just kind of painting the glue on this. It's like an extra step, but I feel like I just have a lot more control over all this, doing it this way. Whatever works for you. And there we go. Okay, throw a little more glue on here. Finish it off on the bottom. Make sure you get some glue right at the very bottom there. And just press that into place. There we go. Okay, so there we have that. And as I mentioned, you can absolutely just get your glue nozzle in there and do it this way as well. Whatever is easier for you. And just make sure you follow the natural curve that's already there, the piece underneath it. Get that nice and lined up, and there you go. Okay, so, and again, you're going to do this on the other side as well to get that piece in place. And if, again, you mess up somewhere, you don't get glue into a little area, you can always throw some on a scrap piece of paper, just paint it on there, and then just press and hold that little area to get it to stick. So again, don't forget to put your other band on the bottom here and the face for your pumpkin. But here is the final project, and there it is. Wow, look at that. So anyway, here is our submersible LED. We'll just pop that into place and close it up. You're not going to see the full effect in here because it's way too bright. I forget how many watts of lights I have in here, but there you have the final piece. It's really cool and looks real. Looks like a real lamp. I guess it kind of is, but anyway, challenging project, but the outcome is fantastic. One of a kind. I've never seen anything like this made out of paper. So this will surely impress your crafty friends and your family, I'm sure. But anyway, if you enjoyed the process, please head over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. While you're there, hit the little bell so that you get notifications anytime we release something new. And if you make this or anything from our new Halloween bundle, I would love to see it, and so would the 23,000 dreamers that inspire us. So head on over to your Facebook, do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, or you can type in this URL here directly, And yeah, join us. Inspire us, be inspired, but most of all, have fun. So happy Halloween, and as always, I look forward to crafting with you again.